The Federal House of Representatives on Tuesday declared Nigeria's newly launched aviation services, Nigeria Air, a fraud. Nigeria Air was part of the last moves made by the Muhammadu Buhari administration and as well Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika. The aircraft used for the launching has been found to be chartered, and Nigeria Air's coming has courted many controversies, with the aviation industry in Nigeria still struggling to cope with its challenges and expectations. The Nigeria Air debacle has raised more questions about the right approach to make the most of an industry that is relatively underperforming. Now, joining me tonight to unpack all of this is Olumide Ohunayo, Assistant Secretary General, Aviation Safety Roundtable Initiative, and John Ojikutu, aviation expert. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen. Thanks for joining me on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Olumide, as an aviation expert. Based on the information provided and what we know so far, how would you assess the level of credibility surrounding the Nigeria Air project and its alleged fraudulent launch?
Good evening. Once again, thank you for having me. And let me say warm regards to my big brother there, who's also the Secretary General of Aviation Roundtable, Group Captain Ojikutu retired. Good evening, sir. Anyway, the credibility of the launch and anything that has to do with the Nigerian Air project died within the industry about 6 or 7 months ago. But I think it's not getting to the general public and Nigerians in general now, maybe in the last 1 week or so. The project process and programs surrounding that Nigerian Air has always been very mystery, and it has ended the way majority of the people, especially those who are not just taking crumbs from the table of the ex-Prime Minister, would agree have ended. The project started very badly from the conception, despite all these resources invested in the process and the planning, and at the end of the day, what they could produce for us was just a static display of an aircraft that came in with Ethiopian registration, owned by the Ethiopian Airlines. That airline is an airline on that schedule, that flew to Israel on Monday, and on Thursday they prepared the aircraft to come to Nigeria for the display. And by Saturday that aircraft left Nigeria again, and by Monday it was in Mogadishu, Somalia. So we did not own that aircraft. We only had a sticker called Nigerian Air on it, and the owners have retrieved their aircraft. They got a clearance of the charter flight to Nigeria, and that's why in the static display that was shown to us, there was no crew. We didn't see the crew operating the flight. We did not even see the interior of the flight, and to show how fraudulent that process was, and how we were taken for a ride. And they just went to the foot of the aircraft, and they had some good shots, and that was it. Even the agency heads were absent. Aviation agency heads were absent at that ceremony. That shows that the game was up for the minister. He was just struggling, and at the end of the day, he landed very badly on a very bad runway. When you are not being sincere, when you have yourself before national interest, this is what will happen, and that's what has happened.
Thank you very much, Olumide. Group Captain Ojikutu, it's nice to have you on the program. Olumide did say that, the launch seems to have taken Nigerians on a ride, and it was shrouded in secrecy, and a lot of things that were not transparent did happen with regards to the launch of Nigeria Air. Group Captain, how do you interpret the timing of the Nigeria Air launch happening just 1 day before the expiration of the previous administration? What potential political motivations or implications could be associated with this timing?
For me, it is very unfortunate that this type of thing is happening in Nigeria now. Despite the number of years that this country have been in civil aviation, especially in commercial aviation, I've been very much worried about the process that was taken by the last administration by 2018, when the minister came to Lagos to announce that he was going to get the national air ready, even much earlier than now. And I remember telling him that I don't see the possibility of it getting on because of so many things were going wrong. If people actually noticed about the end of 2018, when the minister sent a request of $330 million to the Federal Executive Council, that was where I started getting worried. And I had a personal contact with him to ask whether the $330 million was the federal government 5% of the money that was required to set up the national carrier. If that was the 5%, those who are supposed to give the remaining 95%, have they done that?
Mm-hmm.
That the only Nigerian government that is only having 5% is the first person to put the money down. Up till now, the contribution of the other party has not been known, and they have done practically nothing. Seriously speaking, I blame everybody that is concerned with the issue that we are talking about now, especially the National Assembly. The National Assembly that is coming out now to start shouting, they want to probe, they want to probe. Didn't they know when he was spending money? Up to 135 billion. Whether 80 billion, like some people said, 85 billion or 100 billion. Who approved that money? Who approved the money that he was spending? Can anybody spend that much money without the approval or the oversight of the National Assembly? Particularly the committees on aviation, both in the Senate and at the House of Representatives. Why are they now shouting now that the man had left? Why is it not so loud now that the man has left? When he was doing all these things, were they not aware? But like I told some people, how did that aircraft fly into this country without a security clearance? It's not a Nigerian registered aircraft. Even if you write Nigerian Air on it, as far as I'm concerned, it's a stolen identity. If an aircraft comes in with a foreign registration, not a Nigerian registration, with Nigerian Air on it, I believe that the normal thing for those who are in charge of aviation security should have nailed that aircraft down. And by the time you blow it up, that this aircraft flew into this country without a security clearance, then we shall be able to know that aircraft shouldn't have been allowed to leave this country at all, because it's a stolen identity, flying Nigerian color with a foreign registered and without security clearance to fly into the country. For me, that is the beginning of knowing what is happening. It's a disgrace to this country because people are looking at us from outside. All these things we are debating on TV now, that it just look like an aircraft flying to the country, another aircraft flying out of the country, is a stolen identity that must be seriously looked into by the security agency of this country.
It's quite a bizarre situation, if you ask me, Group Captain, and quite a lot of people are shocked at the scale of this deception. And that brings me to Olumide. The Ministry of Aviation claims that Nigeria Air was simply unveiled and not officially launched. Do you find this explanation plausible, or do you believe it was an attempt to divert the attention of lawmakers and the public?
And you want to believe them? You want to believe them? I think, like the good captain said, much respect, sir. I think what we had to do from the Senate and the House Committee on Aviation was put the gallery. They are barely 4 days away, and imagine the two committees met the same day, and with all the people invited. Looking about them having about maybe 2 hours each session, and before diverting just to outdo each other on who is really interested in finding the roots of getting the roots of this issue. Unfortunately for them, they should know that they were elected and they had power to probe the Nigerian issue rather than push that,
not just the power, the responsibility also.
The responsibility, exactly, to do the probe themselves. But that was not done. Then they're pushing to the president that just arrived. And again, they're asking the president to leave his work and start probing the Nigerian. I would just support to also have a judicial panel that will look into the expenses and all that is surrounding the Nigerian air project. But coming back to your question, I think the House committee are a disappointment. Why they have to wait to the 90th minute to realize that something was going wrong, and they sat down all the way. We're looking at all the approvals. Again, the minister told the world that Nigerian Air will fly by May 29th. And the journalists, the media kept asking, and they kept promising that on May 29th, the Nigerian Air will fly, not will unveil. Nigerian Air was unveiled in 2018 in Farnborough, England. That's when it was unveiled.
The logo, yes.
We look at it and we're all upset that, why are you going to England to unveil an airline that is made for Nigerians? So there was nothing to unveil anymore. They said they were going to fly. But how would you fly when you don't have an air operating certificate? You must have an air operating certificate. You must have 3 aircraft, minimum of 3 aircraft. Those 3 aircraft must be owned and owned or leased. And if leased, they must be registered. And you must have done your test flight. And the process of getting the AOC is about 5 stages. You're still on stage 1, and you told the world you were going to fly on May 29th. How?
I mean, but the world press was there at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport. The aircraft was emblazoned with Nigerian colors, and it said Nigeria Air, and it was an aircraft that flew. So, like you can see in our pictures, the visuals you see right now on your screen. So that doesn't pass as Nigeria Air flying.
No. This aircraft you're showing here only has the Nigerian Air logo on it. And look at the water cannon that you just showed again. It's also another deception. That water cannon salute is made for a new airline operating into a new airport and having a first commercial flight to that airport. That's why you use the water cannon to salute to welcome such a scheduled carrier. Into the airport. Once you operate newly into an airport, your first scheduled flight into an airport, that's when you are welcome. Not an aircraft that is not yours, that just started for an operation and have gone back and not coming again. So why did they waste that water? They were even lucky that the water cannon, you don't remove the sticker of the Nigerian Air from that aircraft and expose us fully. But you, we're already in mess. It's all in the mess. All we just need to do is to just see how we can get out of the mess. But the truth is, the minister lied by saying he did not tell the world was going to unveil. He said he was going to fly. He told Mr. President he was going to fly. He told the Federal Executive Council the Nigerian Air will fly, not unveil. And they actually wanted to fly using the Nigerian Eagle, AOC. But it was the same Nigerian Eagle is stopped from operating. Using politics to stop the airline from operating. When they were ready to fly, they had completed the 5 stages. Their 3 aircrafts were on ground, and they were just pick the certificate and start operation when the British politics wrote a petition and that airline did not fly. So I think they tried to go and use that AOC to see if they could use it to start the operation. And on getting that AOC, they now found that the owners of ARIC had already gone to court, suing the owners, suing AMCON, who are the owners of NG Good, and that backfired, and that option could not be used. And they now went back to their option A. And you know, option A can never be better than option B. So the option A, they went back to fly Nigeria Air by force, by fire. And they brought it in, but was unable to fly because it does not have the air operating certificate to fly.
Thank you, Olumide. I would like to bring back Group Captain Ojikutu, retired, into the conversation. Now, Group Captain, 2 questions here. We're seeing deception at this highest level. I mean, 200 million Nigerians taken for a ride. Do you think the immediate past president was in the know of the shenanigans by Mr. Hadi Sirika? And number 2, could you elaborate on the typical requirements and regulations for operating an airline in Nigeria? How does the Nigeria Air project align with this requirement? And what specific obstacles does it face?
First and foremost, like I said earlier on, there is nothing that Sirika has done that has not been done before. And that's why I blame everybody, especially the people sitting down at the National Assembly that are just coming out now. Let me start first. Just before the civil dispensation came up, there was a plan to set up a Nigerian airline, separate from Nigerian Airways. It was taken to the National Assembly. Apparently, the head of that committee, aviation committee, during that dispensation, happened to be an aviator. What we had that time was that Nigerian Airways was dead, and they were going to set up one. And the question that came up is that what killed Nigerian Airways? Let us know what killed Nigerian Airways. If we know what killed Nigerian Airways, then we can move on. If you don't know what killed Nigerian Airways, the same disease that killed Nigerian Airways will kill this airline. If you remember very well, even when Buhari came up this time around, one statement he made, which nobody is referring to today, is that he wants to know what killed Nigerian Airways before he can think of setting up another airline. Nobody has been thinking about that. Even the minister, who is very close to the president, that went this far, should be able to investigate what killed Nigerian Airways. After Nigerian Airways, so many things had happened. After Nigerian Airways, the effort, the attempt to set up another airline after it failed. Then some people came during Obasanjo's time and came up with Virgin Nigeria. Virgin Nigeria killed by some people. Within the same government, it went dead. Then this idea came up again. And like I told you, by 2018, when all these things started showing from the minister, I keep telling everybody, this airline will not fly. Except everybody in this country had to go and sleep and wait for Sirika. People were even expecting the airline was going to do this and this, as I said. It will not fly, one, because even the people that were supposed to take shares in that airline, who are they? Even when they brought out the names, including a foreigner with 60% share in MRS, I started having my doubt. The only Nigerian company that was supposed to have about 26% there, coming from Sakol, a family has 78% in Sakol. That is not a national carrier. My advice to the government that is coming now is that forget about anything they call national carrier. It will not work in Nigeria.
So what are the obstacles? Why do you say so, Group Captain?
We have been trying these things since, since 1992 or 1993. And we have, between then and now, including via Jimo Ibrahim aircraft, Air Nigeria. If I sit down here, if I tell you stories of how they collected money, 200 billion, and they shared.
So is it a problem with us? You have smaller countries like Malawi having national carriers. I mean, it's something of pride. I remember when I was at university, I saw an Air Zimbabwe plane in Changi Airport, all the way in Singapore, and I was wowed.
It is no longer a global practice now. Most countries, including Britain, BA, is a flag carrier. All Americans airlines, they are all flag carriers. They are not national carrier. I told them at the beginning of all this problem, Arik, Aero, Airpeace, and some other, let them sit down together and merge and become flag carriers. Let us set up maximum for now, 2 flag carriers from all these domestic airlines. We are losing a lot of money. We have signed almost 90, 90 BASA agreements. About 30 of them are operating. We are not even operating any one of them for now. So let all these, our own airlines, let them go on the BASA, let them go and compete with the foreign airlines that are coming here. Even though we are making 80% of our earnings, go and ask them, 80% of our earnings are coming from the foreign airlines. They are coming for the foreign airlines because they are making more frequencies to this country than they should do within the BASA agreement. So outside the BASA agreement is a commercial agreement. And that is why we're giving them money, it's giving us money, but even that money we cannot see. It is not sufficient, like I said, to even ask for flag carriers. We must know how much money they are making on the BASA route. The BASA route belongs to Nigerians. It doesn't belong to individuals. If we cannot have a national carrier because of our corruption, let us set up flag carriers. And let the flag carriers, let them go to the capital market so that you and I can buy shares into it,
yes.
and we can have them accounting for the money they are making within the country and outside this country. We are making minimum 2.5 billion from all these foreign airlines. Where is that money? Where is that money? So if you are now going to set up a national carrier, which I see more or less like a government carrier, because eventually they turn Nigerian Airways, which should be a national carrier, they turn it to government carriers. So every place, every government officials are going, they will collect money from the government and they will not pay because the Nigerian Airways will give them a kind of concession. We need to be very careful. A lot of money has gone into aviation in the last 20 years of the civil administration, and we have not been able to account for it properly within the, the gross domestic product. We have not been able to account for it. So what I am suggesting, how to solve this problem on the ground, let the new government forget anything that has to do with national carrier.
Okay.
Look for the credible airlines in this country, turn them to flag carriers, but you must tell them, before you give them that flag carrier certificate, let them go to the stock market so that Nigerians can have shares in it. That is my advice.
And it does help with transparency too. Thank you very much, Group Captain Ojikutu. It's a fine place to go on a break. We still have so much to unpack as we look in and explain the Nigeria Air project. Do stay with us. This is Politics HQ. We will be right back after this quick timeout. You're welcome back to Politics HQ on News Central Television. And we've been discussing the controversies surrounding the launch of the Nigeria Air project, the alleged launch at this point. And joining me on this very interesting and important discussion is Olumide Ohunayo, Assistant Secretary General, Aviation Safety Roundtable Initiative. And also retired Group Captain John Ojikutu, an aviation expert, and also, I believe, the Secretary General of the Aviation Safety Roundtable Initiative. You're welcome back, gentlemen. We'll continue our conversation with Olumide. Now, from a legal and regulatory standpoint, what potential repercussions could the individuals or entities involved in the alleged fraud face? Because, I mean, that is what it looks like, and that is what it is. Are there existing mechanisms in place to hold them accountable? The House Committee on Aviation has a role to play in addressing the issues surrounding Nigeria Air. You have said it yourself that it seems like a case of medicine after death. In your opinion, what specific actions or initiatives could the committee undertake to ensure transparency, prevent similar incidents, and safeguard the interests of the aviation industry in Nigeria and the general public?
Thank you for that. And I think if you just ask now is that key that would unlock the past and present misbehavior of people appointed to public offices. There has not been sanction and consequences for actions taken while in office. And if we continue to look away, just like let us start over again, they will continue to run into troubles. If you look at the new terminal at the airport in Lagos, that terminal is underutilized. It's underutilized because the terminal operated in a place where it wasn't supposed to be. The master plan was not followed. And we collected loans from the Chinese government for that terminal and some other terminals in Nigeria. And this terminal, this one in Lagos, one in Abuja, had issues with their location. That was because somebody who was a minister there felt he had the power to override every other person in positioning what he wanted to do. I think what happened, they positioned the new terminal there and built their private car park very close to it. It was because of the car park that they chose that spot for that terminal, not following the airport master plan. And today, the big airlines are not using that terminal. As beautiful as it is, as good as it is, it's not generating revenue that is needed to pay back the loans that was used to build it and the other terminal. So these are the mistakes, these are things we've lived with the arbitrary behavior of politicians appointed or nominated to run the industry. And it has happened. It happened with Seladua. It has happened again this time around. Now, you will find out, but if we are able to, just like I said, I do not envy the incoming minister because Hadi Sirika was too eager to grab power like someone who had not seen power before. He was supposed to be Minister of State. We were on the Ministry of Transportation. We were comfortable there, and that's what we wanted because we know what the minister that will be bringing down the neck of the agency here. We are comfortable under the Ministry of Transportation. As a department, yes, lead the mission there. And just appoint the agency here, and the board of directors have stated clearly in their act. But he pulled away from the Ministry of Transport to have a standalone Ministry of Aviation, and from then he became an emperor. He was dealing directly with the agencies, managing their affairs, collecting their contracts from federal executive, and implementing those contracts himself with cronies. And so you will find out if by the time the incoming minister or this government look at what has happened, you find out maybe the Nigerian air project is even the least of all the problems we have. But I can tell you, we already have litigations from the Nigerian air project. We have litigation from the concession it did. We have contract agreement that we are not meeting up with because of some of these irresponsible actions of the politicians that was brought in. We also have the problem of the agencies now. The agencies are having staff and expanded departments to directorates. This was what this man did during his last 8 years. A man who promised that was going to restructure and fine-tune the staff structure in the airline and in the agencies for them to operate optimally and maybe profitably too, and only to make it worse. But getting more staff into the agencies, and this staff were even from a particular section of this country. The federal character was not followed in the employment of people. So there's so many landmines in place. But like you said, how are we going to do it? We cannot just come and say, bygone be bygone. We must come back and look at the issues on ground, try and fix it, get a repetition. But if we don't clear the mess on ground, we cannot attract foreign investors. We are looking at the charade that is going on, and nobody wants to come. You can look at the Nigerian air. There's no credible foreign investor that will come and invest there. If with all the population we have, with all the foreign flights asking for extra frequencies, operating to the different points of entry, expanding the aircraft sites to bring in Nigerians and those traveling into Nigeria, yet not one was interested in investing in your national carrier. He said there was something wrong with the process and the person leading the process.
Thank you, Olumide. Now, Group Captain Ojikutu, I believe if we didn't have a culture of impunity and if, punitive measures were taken against people that tried to shortchange the country in the past, we wouldn't have found ourselves in this situation. Now, looking at the broader picture, what steps should the new government, the Nigerian government, take to restore public trust and credibility in its aviation initiatives, particularly in light of the Nigeria Air controversy? Are there any lessons to be learned from this? And also, taking into account the political landscape, what broader implications does this Nigeria Air controversy have for the current administration? How might it impact public perception of the ability to manage and execute major infrastructure projects? Hello, Group Captain Ojikutu, are you there?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Did you get my question, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead because I get an interruption from here.
Okay, I'll repeat myself. I said, looking at the broader picture, what steps should the new Nigerian government take, the new administration, to restore public trust and credibility in its aviation initiatives, particularly in light of the Nigeria Air controversy? And are there any lessons to be learned? Also, taking into account the political landscape, what implications does he have for the current administration? How might it impact public perception of their ability to effectively manage and execute major infrastructure projects?
I think I have said this before. For the present government, for the present administration, because the government belongs to everybody, for the present administration in the new government to be able to do something credible for this country, let them discard the idea of a national carrier, especially the area that has to do with commercial aviation. The national carrier is just one of them. Discard the idea completely. Abiola used to say, government has no business in business. Please set up flag carriers, like I said. 2 flag carriers, one for regional and continental from the domestic airlines that are operating today. One of them for regional and continental. The other one for intercontinental, that will go to Europe and go to America and go to Asia. The other one, regional, depending on the audit assessment of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. And the new government must make sure that NCAA is really very autonomous on oversight of the operators and the enforcement of regulation on the operators. The ministry has no job in this area. When ICAO comes to this country, he wants to speak to the Civil Aviation Authority. The only civil aviation authority in this country is the NCAA, not the ministry. The ministry of today, of the last administration, took over the responsibility of all the operators. And that's where the ministry started coming. And nobody, including the National Assembly, did not call the ministry to order. Why are they not calling the ministry to order when the horse had decided from the barn? We need to look seriously into this. If government, the new administration wants to have a peaceful time, remove your hand from national carrier, set up 2 flag carriers for the time being. You might increase them later, but 2 for the time being, 1 for continental, 1 for regional. Secondly, there is this idea of airport concession. Government too should make sure that he removes his hand from the non-aeronautical. Non-aeronautical has to do with the terminal buildings, all the terminal buildings, whether it's cargo, whether it's passenger, or car park or anything, and then give them out. The international airport, if you are going to concession it, concession them with at least.
Sorry to interrupt you, Group Captain. When you talk of concessions, do you mean the sort we have with the second Murtala Mohammed domestic terminal, popularly known as the MM2 with Courtney? Are you looking at that sort of arrangement?
I am looking at it.
Okay.
We have said so many things about Courtney. And I'm surprised with some of the stories we have been hearing that during the concession, Courtney did not take part in it. And I wish I hear that Courtney took part and it was rejected. Let me say one thing. As of today, in Murtala Mohammed Airport, compare the Courtney terminal, passenger terminal, with any other terminals in that place. And that's why most of the domestic airlines are moving from the GAT terminals to MM2. But unfortunately, there is not enough space there. Courtney itself made a lot of mistake at the beginning. All these buildings that they are trying to convert into aerotropolis should have been part of the terminal. Where the car park is, that is where the terminal should have been. Where the terminal is supposed to have been expanded to take more aircraft there. The terminals are airports are meant for aircraft and passengers, not for hotels, especially around that area. Hotels are supposed to be at the boundaries of the airport. So that's where some of these mistakes are. And they were doing all these things politically. Unfortunately, the regulatory agency that is supposed to be seen into some of these things, politically, they didn't allow him to do the job. We need to be very careful. ICAO comes here every time. When ICAO come here, they give you 70-something%. No. If they give you 70-something and they don't come back until after 6 months, it means you have not done well. It's like somebody who did an exam and is going to repeat that exam, and at the end of the day, they give you to class. That's what has always been happening. All these ones, ICAO came and no, I didn't see that way. So what I'm saying is that the new administration should remove its hand from anything commercial in that airport, in our airport, and face squarely safety issue and regulation on both the operators, whether they are government or civil. That is what the government is supposed to do, not to get involved in commercial aviation. Give them out to people who are going to manage them well in accordance to the regulations which we have prepared and domesticated from the ICAO. We are not doing that. Everything is political. We are setting up a national carrier that is looking more to me like a private airline, just like Virgin Nigeria. Virgin Nigeria was set up in the same way. And that is why within the same administration, it was knocked down. And they sold it to somebody. My brother, if we sit down here and start telling you the stories of how this industry has been wrecked in the last 20 years, we shouldn't be where we are now. It shouldn't be Ethiopia, who is our competitor on the domestic route, that we should be going into partnership with. We cannot go. We did that, like I always tell people. We did that with KLM in the early 90s. We failed. We did that with South Africa. We failed. Why Ethiopia now? Let us find a way to do it by ourselves. And let the NCA do the necessary things on each and every one, whether you are private, whether you are government, especially the service providers, which include FAN, which includes NAMA. That is what NCA is supposed to be doing. NCA has not been able, they haven't been giving it the power that he has within the regulation, within the act, to perform the function he's supposed to do. We are going down what the level where we were in the early 90s. We are going down. We
Thank you very much.
Find a solution to it.
Group Captain Ojikutu, quite deep conversation we've had here this evening. And Olumide, you agree with me that most of the issues with the aviation sector is undue influence from the politicians. You know, there's always there's issues of patronage. There's also issues of the aviation ministry breathing down on NCAA and usurping some of its responsibilities. Now, from lessons we've learned tonight from this discussion, going forward, the Nigeria Air controversy raises questions about the overall governance and oversight of public projects in the country. What reforms or measures should be put in place to enhance transparency, accountability, and efficiency in the execution of such projects? And is there a way that you could just keep politics aside and politicians and let the professionals do their jobs?
I need to tell you the truth that the processes and checks and balances are already in place. You have the ICRC, the Infrastructure Consortium Regulatory Commission, even kept a technical personnel with the Minister of Aviation. And I was surprised to see them at the House Committee yesterday saying that the Ministry of Justice told them to hands off anything concerning Nigerian Air. Yes, they've been with the Minister for the past 2.5 years. That's the Bureau of and not for due process. All these agencies are there to ensure that where any government asset or organization is moving into concession, it follows the regulated process and follow the act. But with all this, all has failed. All has failed. So it shows that there's always the rule, but then man will do what he wants to do. So, and like I said earlier, the new minister coming in, he should not be in a hurry to start anything new. And you cannot say bygone is bygone. There's no bygone is bygone, because bygone is making that terminal in Lagos not useful today. And we are paying the loans. And we don't want to add more problems with what we have had as a minister in the last 8 years. So there's a need to first review the road map. Go and check the two airports to set the concession. They must call for the documents. How was this concession? How did it come about? They must halt the process of Nigerian going ahead with the AOC process. Because if you go ahead with this concept, with the way it was conceptualized by the former minister, you must have a major crisis ahead of us.
Okay. I'm afraid this conversation has to come to an end at this point as we fast run out of time. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Olumide Ohunayo, Assistant Secretary General, Aviation Safety Roundtable Initiative, and also retired Group Captain John Ojikutu, Aviation Expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time and your very insightful contribution to the program tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now it's time for me to give you something to chew on after this timeout.